Welcome to Oblivion 9, December 2nd, 2018, 10:24 p.m. Eastern Time. What's up, guys? Thank you for subscribing, liking, and sharing the videos to those unaware of the things that's happening in the world. Okay, let's get started. Scientists can't explain what caused this mysterious seismic waves to travel around the world. See, most people don't understand that this low frequency waves, you can't basically hear it, even though it's a big ship passing by. If you believe in the flat Earth scenario with a dome, you'd basically not hear anything. But you know, we are programmed since we were little kid going to school that the planets are round. Well, they are round in some way, but believe me, they are not. Even the ancient people, even God himself, said that the Earth is flat. And also it's a supply hub for the other people from different places to come here and basically gather materials. Same thing with the space station, the International Space Station. It's a supply hub for the people that does the program for the Space Force. You know, we've seen astronauts not to man the International Space Station, but obviously to deliver supplies, materials, and also to do engineering work for the Space Force. It's a routine military exercise that we basically all do, but most of us don't see that. Same thing when they spend all this rover, you know, with all these high-tech cameras. The only picture you get is like from a 2 megapixel camera. You know what I mean? It's all BS. It's more than that. So because you don't want you to see, we're programmed to study little kid stuff. For grown-ups, for people that have opened their eyes, we want something more productive, something that we pay our taxes. You know, we have to get something more than that. So getting back to it. So here we go. Same thing. This mysterious seismic wave recently shook Earth, and scientists can't explain it. November 11. Imagine that. But none of us even heard it. So let's listen to the explanation, all right?
That was Lloyd Albright. Now, how do I know that's the right number? Well, my board operator in Oregon got me the number. A man conference. Then I asked for the direct number. I have a secondary fax here, which found his phone number listed in something called switchboard.com with an address of Satellite Beach, Florida, and the phone numbers matched. And so I think that really was the real Mr. Albright. What you make of his story now is entirely up to you.
I'm listening. To me, this man sounded very confused.
I agree.
And he was
tired, no doubt, tired, and
he completely digressed the conversation into the Cassini, situation.
Yeah, I know.
Which has nothing to do with comets.
I know. But I do have reason to believe that was a real Mr. Albright.
Okay. Well, put yourself in his position. He somehow was motivated to leave home, leave his family, leave the love of his life, according to what he just said.
None of that in the story, by the way.
No, none of that.
And you certainly would think the sheriff would have news media a tagline that he was having, domestic difficulties, or some little tagline that they would put on a story like this.
Yes, and you didn't ask him how he found the cave. The sheriff himself didn't know existed there. What I'm hearing tonight is what I would expect from someone who has to go back to work and live with whatever he's got to live with, and is frankly wanting to get rid of this as fast as possible. Not, Mr. Albright, mental condition notwithstanding, we still have the data on the NASA seed from Turkey. We still have objects in the Enki orbit,
Right.
and the projected model of racing the train to the crossing. We and they are going to meet very close in November. I'm suspicious, as I have been for a year, because there's too much going on here to be fobbed off with marital difficulties. You don't leave and travel 4 states away and load your car full of everything to survive the end of the world because of marital difficulties.
I would think that would have made it into the story, Richard, wouldn't you?
I would think so. Michael had a very extensive discussion with the sheriff this morning, and what I am impressed with is that they turned this man loose with all those guns.
All right. Look, we've got so much breaking all around us right now. Let me bring on somebody else, Richard. Here's Charlie Plyler. I've got Charlie on the line. Hi, Charlie.
Hi, Art. How are you?
Well, a little confused.
Hi, Charlie.
Hi.
It's Richard Hoagland.
Hello, Richard. How are you?
Pretty good.
All right, Charlie. Richard and myself, I've been reading what you've been posting on the internet now for some time, some number of days, about something that you think you're tracking, or I guess you certainly are tracking. Charlie, tell us the story. Would you please? You're a researcher into ultra-low frequency radio, and what do you think you've discovered, please?
What I'd really like to know, Art, I noticed a peak in the frequency spectrum, extremely low, several weeks ago, and which in itself is not unusual. There's a lot of signals going through the Earth, but this peak has started increasing in frequency on a day-to-day basis. And out of curiosity,
what is the frequency, Charlie?
It started out, but right now it is 0.04 hertz, which is extremely, extremely low. That would equate to a wavelength of approximately 4,232,995. Those figures may not be exactly right, but pretty close to a little over 4 million miles.
Close enough.
Yeah.
4 million miles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Art, just for the sake of comparison, the Enki orbit that
Yes.
we're seeing of these objects by the sun that NASA photographed,
Yes.
Enki's orbit, the Beta Taurid orbit, they are at a minimum of about 190 million miles away from us, because they're on the other side of the sun beyond Earth's orbit at this geometry. So whatever Charlie is picking up and what we're seeing in the video have to be two totally separate
things. Charlie, why do you think that what you're picking up is coming from outside the Earth versus inside the Earth?
I would guess the biggest reason, I keep up also with the magnetic field changes of the Earth.
Right.
And this, in the spectrum of various minute changes in the magnetic field, that causes extremely low frequency wavelengths.
Right.
And I picked this up during this particular time that I was looking at anomalies caused by solar burst, X-ray radiation, things like that. But I really have no way of telling where it's coming from.
Charlie?
Yes.
These are not correlated with any events going on the sun, though.
No, not at all.
Exactly.
It's a steady burst. The unusual aspect is the strongest when the sun is directly overhead. That in itself, you would think that it would be connected with the sun.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. And it peaks around noontime.
Or something in line with the sun.
Exactly. That was my thought.
Okay. So it peaks with the sun. It's at 0.045 hertz. And how strong is the signal?
Above the noise level to about 150 millivolts. High enough above the noise level so it's very distinct.
Well, isn't that interesting? 50 millivolts, that's a pretty big signal.
Of course, that's relative. That's relative with the amplification equipment I'm using.
Yep. Well, now other people can listen as well. Anyway, in an email that I saw, Charlie, you had postulated that if your model is correct, as Richard could put it, if this is a Doppler shift you're observing, then between the, I think it was the 11th and the 12th, is that right? The 11th and the 12th, yes. The object would have decelerated in excess of 600,000 miles per hour. Is that accurate?
Those are not my figures. I couldn't tell you right off the top of my head.
So somebody took what you did in terms of what you thought might be Doppler shift and projected that.
I believe so, yes.
Charlie, let me try to get something straight here. You're saying that this low frequency or ultra low frequency is like a standing wave, and the frequency is related to the wavelength, which is how you derive the distance for the hypothetical object in your model, right?
Correct.
And when the frequency changes, you interpret that as a change of distance, changing the standing wave to a new distance, right?
Right. For instance, August 11th, the frequency was 0.028 hertz. That equates to a wavelength of 6,651,000 miles.
So this is not a direct Doppler. This is a derived calculated distance change.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely.
So someone has done the calculation, taken those frequencies, translated them into a standing wave distance.
I see.
Like singing in the shower.
Yes. Another thing, the distances are relative. Now, this is the wavelength of the signal itself. August 12th, 13th, 14th, this wavelength is getting shorter with a correspondingly increase in frequency.
Charlie, are you hearing the signal when the sun is down, other side of the Earth?
It's very, very low. It's in the noise level. You can't pick it up.
Now, let me ask you this, Charlie. Does this thing move in continuous frequency change, or does it jump?
It will jump slightly. It isn't exactly correct. Like other influences may change it.
Why are you going, What does that mean?
That's just a model of a ship. I don't know whether, Charlie, you were listening earlier, but I've been thinking for months, ever since I stumbled across this stuff way back last fall when you were looking at these ultra-low signals, that we're not looking at natural objects, we're looking at the engine noise, the electronic kind of ignition noise, only in the very low frequency regime of big, powerful electrogravitic engines that would be needed to move a big mass in space from one point to another without rockets. And we see NASA video of this stuff. We've got 2 sets of video of things that do this, and they move discontinuously. They appear to appear and then disappear, which would indicate the guy can jump across a reasonable amount of space, which would result in, if you're looking at a standing wave model, resonating the ionosphere and the magnetosphere of the Earth, that you were getting a discontinuous distance change, not a natural object.
Charlie, I forget, where are you located?
In North Carolina.
Oh my God, I woke you up in the middle of the night.
No, as a matter of fact, I was just getting ready to take a trip to Georgia, and I had to check my email.
Oh, and that's why you called me. Yes, I sent that email just before the show tonight.
Oh.
Because your story is sort of one of several that are interesting and confusing at the same time, that seem to be very synchronous. Are you aware, Charlie, of what they saw when the moon went in front of the sun in totality in Turkey?
Yes, I am. I've been following that quite closely, quite curious also.
What do you think of the quality of the video, Charlie? Have you seen any other sources than the NASA feed?
Not too good.
Meaning
I believe it could be better. Of course, with I have no idea of the type of equipment they were using, but I would have thought that the video could have been a little bit sharper and clearer.
Interesting.
Well, as you pointed out, though, Richard, they have automatic gain controls, and when the sun begins to even peek out a little bit, and they get the diamond effect. You can see the camera going into immediate shutdown. Mm-hmm. So,
may I ask you a question?
Sure.
I noticed yesterday's data after I compiled it. This wavelength is, as far as the proportion of the time and the distance, seems to be slowing down. As a matter of fact, as of yesterday, at 0.04 hertz, the distance had actually increased from the Earth about 150,000 miles.
No, that's interesting.
Which I'm not sure if you have anything on that yet or not.
Well, I mean, my model here is you're not picking up a resonance with a natural off. You're picking up engine noise of a big, massive electrogravitic system driving a big vehicle.
But that's a speculative model.
Well, of course. But in the natural model, things just don't hop around. And they certainly don't decrease and then increase by hundreds. That's halfway from here to the moon.
No, that's true. They don't do that.
Now, let me put another piece of data on the table. The Millennium Group has been doing a really good job of monitoring the SOHO data. Have been tracking funny-looking things that appear in the images SOHO is taking of the sun during those artificial eclipses.
Yes, sir.
Their proposal is there's a new natural member of the solar system, which I think is not correct. But if somebody's trying to get our attention, hovering around kind of in the field of view of SOHO,
yes,
I projected that something a few million miles further toward the sun, but nowhere near close to the sun, which is 93 million miles away, would fit the bill.
Something's out there. All right, look, we're at the top of the hour. Charlie, I really want to thank you for calling in. I've got your number. You're going away to Georgia. When are you going to be back?
It's a quick trip. It'll be this afternoon sometime.
Oh, excellent. All right.
Charlie, do you archive your data by date?
Yes, I do.
Is it pretty consistent? And
it is very consistent, except for the various anomalies caused by natural events.
Charlie, listen, we'll try and get a link up to your website so people can take a look. I'm out of time. So,
okay.
Charlie, let's stay. Thank you so much for coming on. All right.
Thank you.
Good night, Charlie. All right. Good night, Charlie.
Did you guys hear that? That's the low frequency waves. You don't hear it, but with a proper instrument, you will. Let me see here. What we got here? The Vulcans. Alright, we'll get back to this one. Now.
Are you familiar with what happened on July? I think it was 24th of this year, 3 months ago.
What?
Over Siberia.
Yeah, the explosion, the black,
No.
the sun turning black.
The occultation, the artificial eclipse.
Right. Yes.
3.5 hours, bing, bing, and suddenly it's gone.
Right.
Over an area the size of Italy.
Right. So how was it that the sun went black? Because they said they saw
It's
a
really
flash,
simple.
they saw a bolt, and then they saw the blackness.
It's really simple. You park a big, umbrella, parasol in front of the sun that only impacts a limited area. I mean, the moon is 2,160 miles in diameter. It's 250,000 miles away. When it moves across the sun, it occults the entire solar disk, right?
Right.
If you had something much closer, like almost in low Earth orbit, it wouldn't have to be 2,000 miles across. It could be a few thousand feet across.
And they would use it as a communication tool.
And, you use it to get somebody's attention.
Exactly. Okay.
You basically say to Putin, remember, this occurred right after Putin had agreed to come to Washington for the second Trump meeting.
It's interesting.
If we're dealing with real extraterrestrial brothers and sisters, another space-faring civilization out there, a la, Rick's breakaway civilization model, and we're at war at some level, there's weird stuff going on.
With the weather and with everything else, I mean, it's crazy.
Look at the Cold War. During the Cold War, you had two big superpowers, but they had spies on each side that tried to communicate with each other.
What I'm going to do, Richard, is I'm going to play you the Sam call and let you determine what Sam's saying. Because he's kind of talking about using a very powerful tool in order to communicate and to send images and information. And he
with Clyde Lewis and Ground Zero on FM News 101.
God's cup is him. We would not have to go with them who've gone before, who short as us stood tall as they could stand, and hoped by stretching tall that they might keep their land, their home, their heart.
When the whole thing went down at Sunspot, I said, if there are any Paul Reveres out there, okay, if there are any Paul Reveres out there, I want you to call in and tell us what you think happened at Sunspot. And since Sam, and we've checked his background, we've had a number of people who we know that could check his background. He said for 30 years, he worked for DARPA, and he worked in the Scalar Weapons Division, and he gave us some information in the past that has been correct, okay, about something called the Medusa horn, which is a scalar weapon that they used on the diplomats in Cuba. He gave us that information before. There's even big information in the media. He gave us all that information.
Well, yeah, I have a few sources like that. One in particular we call Deep Space.
Right.
Like Deep Throat.
Exactly. Well, this guy just calls himself Sam. And so the other night when I was talking about Sunspot, we get this call coming in, I believe it was from Colombia or someplace, because the thing is that it was a rerouted call, and you can tell by the sound of it because there's an echo. It was
in Colombia, the country?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. So, and we happen to know somebody who was in Colombia as well that used to do, gun running for the CIA. What's his name? Gene Tatum, right? It was Gene Tatum.
So he's an expat, or he routes it by satellite through another country?
Yes, I believe he's routing it through, because when you hear the connection, you'll hear how it was routed through. You can hear there's an echo, and he was talking through a voice oscillator to make his voice sound different. Okay, so I'm going to play you the call.
I know, because it's scared. Talking about the stuff that gets you killed. So let's get back to this one.
That kind of stuff up and driving all the way to Ohio, and he said he wasn't in, but either being near or in a cave. Read in, you can go to my website, you can read the story for yourself. And normally, if they're going to write that kind of story, and I'm just speaking now as somebody in the media, tagged the story with Lloyd said he had had some recent domestic difficulties or something of that sort. And nothing like that was there. Now, how did I find Lloyd tonight? The answer to that is a man, Lloyd Albright. The answer is a man named Matt, who I think prefers not to have his last name known. We'll ask him. And he said he sent frantic messages to my network, Art, I can conference you with Lloyd. And so he did, off air. And I said, Lloyd, look, I've got to confirm this is you. Would you give me your home number, please, so I can call you directly? And he did. It jived with a search engine phone number for a Lloyd Albright in Satellite Beach, Florida. And so, based on that, I conclude a very high probability that we did hear from the real Lloyd Albright. Now I've got Matt on the line, who talked to Lloyd Albright for about an hour before we talked to Lloyd on the air. And here is Matt. Matt, are you there? I'm here. Do you not wish to give your last name?
No.
You don't want to get involved like that?
No.
Okay, I'm bringing Richard Hoagland up at the same time. Matt, you conferenced the call between myself and Lloyd, correct?
Correct. I just want to get it out there that I was just really interested in the story, and I thought I have some resources that I could take advantage of to find out who this person was and if it was true. And upon contacting him, I was thoroughly convinced it was him. I just asked him if the true Lloyd, and he proceeded to explain the story on what really happened.
Now, it doesn't jive very much at all with what we read in the newspaper.
Well, as a matter of fact, Art, you're actually incorrect. And I can't remember there's two stories posted up on your website now, and one of them does actually mention marital problems.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
Which one is that? Do you know?
I believe it was the second one, and I'll go back to it.
When was it filed?
Because in this kind of a situation, you want to go to the earliest source before people have a chance to have a change of heart and need to change their story. I am reading from the sheriff's deposition his actual quotes in the original story. He said he found the car from a call on Sunday. All right? This was filed 8/13/99, so he got the first call Sunday. He got the second call on Tuesday. The vehicle with master description parked on a township road in the area of the park. When deputies arrived at the scene, they found the vehicle packed full of the supplies, could not locate the driver. Smith, he's the sheriff, had the vehicle transported to the Noble County Jail and began a search. Quoting, he says, "We got to thinking that possibly something had happened to the driver. We went out to search the area and tracked the person through a field and wooded areas. We then found rope that led down embankments and ravines. When we got to the bottom of the second ravine, we found him in a cave. He was trying to boil eggs. It was real smoky. In fact, some of the deputies didn't like it in his cave."
Yeah, that's what we've heard. Now, Richard, let me add, we've now got a second story link on our page. This one is to the Associated Press article, Caldwell, and it does not, it's the second story on my website, it does not mention marital difficulties. I just now read it. It's up there right now, the AP story.
Okay,
So, and it just strikes me as strange, Matt. Now, you talked to Lloyd for an hour.
For over an hour.
For over an hour. And it strikes me as strange that these news reporting agencies wouldn't include that so that everybody would understand the story, because otherwise, a NASA contractor, subcontractor, whatever he is, computer guy, all of a sudden seems to, for no reason that we can discern other than what he just told us on the phone, goes to Ohio to a cave with a bunch of guns and food and all the rest of it, is, you must admit, a little strange, and his explanation on the air sounded
Disjointed?
Yeah, a little. So, Matt, what did you hear in that hour that we didn't get?
I asked him to explain what he was doing, and he he sounded very upset. He's actually I don't know if he's probably not listening, so I don't think he'll care, but he's going for a psychiatric evaluation tomorrow. Let me tell you the story about where the comet story, how he explained it to me, originated. He had been apparently speaking with someone at work, and they had mentioned the possibility of a meteor or comet coming to Earth.
At work at NASA.
Right. And this is interesting. Right. Well, his interest, he, in whatever state of mind he is in it now or at the time, he had apparently been corresponding with a woman in Ohio via the internet.
Yeah, he said that.
And they came to the conclusion via remote viewing that a meteor was going to strike, and that it was his best interest to flee to Ohio.
Okay, so in other words, he took something he heard at work, combined it with something that he came up with in a conversation and more with this lady,
right, and
over the internet,
and he misinterpreted the stress from his divorce and reprojected that into the feelings of the meteor striking.
Okay, and that's what you got during that hour.
Well, I've got a lot more information, but I can go over I have it all written down, so I can go through what I've written down.
Well, if you want to hit the high critical points, go ahead.
So, okay, well, he wanted me to stress to you that he really didn't feel he steps back and he looks back and he doesn't feel that he didn't feel that there was going to be a meteor strike on Earth. He just said he was having marital problems, freaking out.
Right.
To discredit. A part of his hysteria actually came from the MillenGroup.com website, which I've just been made aware of tonight. And I don't know if Mr. Hogan has any association with that website or not.
All right, so he claims he saw this. Wait a minute now. We're getting a couple of stories here. One, the Millennium Group is one thing. Hearing it from somebody at work, in his case, work being NASA, is something else again.
A cumulative. He got very upset over the fact that, and he tried to explain to you when he was on about the fact about how plutonium in fusion, when in fact plutonium cannot fuse. Wait. What does that have to do with the comet?
Yeah.
Well, that's the Cassini story. That's why I think he's kind of gone off the edge. I don't think any of this information. I think it's hysteria, and he's not associated.
Matt, let's
have done that.
Yeah, this is really a weird story, Matt. You've got to agree that that sounds a little odd for a sheriff to just
let him go. Unless, Art, he got a call from NASA.
Yeah.
Because I've been in situations where I've been, well, may I finish, please?
Go ahead.
In my early years when I didn't understand the levels of NASA that exist, I was in California and I was driving some folks to a dinner party, and they were all hippies, and it turned out that they had some pretty incriminating things in their luggage because they were going to South America, or they were from, I forget exactly the details, but
do the wild thing at 775-727-1295.
And what I did, because I was late and I was mad at the way these guys were doing various things, including searching without probable cause just because of the way we looked, I pulled out my NASA credentials. Well, you would have thought that I had pulled out Secret Service credentials. Suddenly these guys are on the radio. These are state police from California. They're on the radio, and they walk back, and they say very respectfully, "Oh, Mr. Hogan, we're so sorry to have detained you," and they wished us well, and I didn't even get a ticket. And I realized in later years that the NASA cachet was much more important than I thought at the time.
Well, that may be, and a call could have gone.
So suddenly the sheriff lets this guy go.
Yeah, really, I know, it's really strange. Matt?
Yep.
Matt, go ahead and add whatever else you want to add now.
Well, I think it all adds up to his hysteria, but I think he has some really interesting points regarding the Cassini, and I honestly don't know how they all relate, but
well, it's a moot point now. Cassini has already passed the closest point to Earth.
Well, I think that was part of his hysteria, and maybe the sheriff, in his hysteria, he explained meteor, and that actually meant Cassini.
Well, wait.
Oh, now, wait a minute.
No. That's what according to Smith, Albright said he was hiding in the cave, to avoid meteor showers, which he said will hit the Atlantic, causing a 200-foot tidal wave, which is accurate if this were to happen.
Right.
Wreaking havoc on the East Coast and Florida.
That is what's in the story, Matt, and that has no relationship to Cassini and the possible re-entry.
It may not, but let me give you the points that he talked about Cassini, if I may.
All right, briefly.
Yeah, but it's off track. Okay. And it's also a conversation.
Is this because you're related to the website or not?
All right. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, he claims that
Richard knows, to answer your question, knows Mike Barrow, who has the website.
Okay. So.
Oh, no, that's not true either. I'm sorry.
No.
The Millennium Group knows Mike Barrow, who knows Richard Hoagland, who has the website.
So he won't be offended by my disclosure of whatever, if this is true or not. Basically, 2 days ago, the Millennium Group website, according to him, and I've never been to the website before, was the front end to a psychic 900 type of group where you pay. So he was very distraught over the fact that in this Cassini question, the paper, that information in that document has changed within the past 2 days, and he has proof of that, whatever that may be. So this all comes back to, I think, that this man is extremely hysterical, distraught over his divorce, and in the conversation I had with him, I'm thoroughly convinced that we have nothing to worry about.
All right, Matt,
let me raise one more question, man.
Sure.
Here's a guy who's from out of state. He's picked up by the local, gendarmes in a state park. He's arrested, put in jail. Have you ever been arrested, Matt? No. Okay. One of the first things you do when you're arrested is you try to appeal to the local people's sense of community, in that if you know someone in the community, you want them to vouch for you.
Right.
Which means if he knew this woman in Ohio, and that was why he went there, why didn't he tell the sheriff, I know so-and-so, she'll tell you who I am, etc.? It never appeared.
Listen, I don't think there's an answer to that question, Matt. I want to thank you for coming on.
No problem.
And giving us your perspective.
No problem. I appreciate it.
Take care. All right. I think people are going to have to sit out there and decide for themselves what Mr. Albright said here on the air, how they feel about what he said, and what Matt just said, and what you're saying. This is one weird damn story. That's all right.
What I'm saying is look for consistency. When a witness begins to change his story and try to downplay all the most interesting aspects, including his physical removal 4 states away separation from his wife and his son and family.
Well, that would stress anybody.
Something is...
If it's true.
Is motive... No, I'm talking about he physically left them.
Yeah,
if you care about somebody, you don't leave them.
Yeah, again, going to the story, the part that I have a problem with is exactly what you said, and that is that a sheriff, on finding somebody with a massive cache of guns and ammo and so forth and so on, would just turn somebody loose under those conditions.
Yep.
Find them so credible, so articulate, so mentally fit.
When they have demonstrated behavior that's outside the normal curve.
That is, clearly outside the norm. I surely agree with you. Would have been some sort of check and some sort of reference in the news article. All of this
doesn't feel right.
No, it doesn't. And in no way do I believe that when you read the story, you can convert this to Cassini in any manner. Now, I have no idea what the reference to the Millennium Group website, particularly in the last couple of days, would be.
Well,
because that would not bear on what happened to him when it happened.
No, exactly. When I was
whatever it says
for what we were doing tonight, I went over to the Millennium website and I read through several of the stories, including the Cassini story, which has nothing to do with psychics and nothing to do with a comet.
Yeah, I know.
It's purely on the Cassini and the plutonium problem and the public policy question, the 72 pounds of plutonium, the thing we've talked about before. In no way, shape, or form